was always an anxious child. I used to pull out my hair when I was little, and then when I got into 5th grade, I started getting really sick for no reason, and we didn't know what was going on. And we tested me for like everything, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And then they finally figured out that it was my body physically reacting to the anxiety I was feeling. So if I had an upcoming test that one day, then I would get breakout in hives or something like that, where I would have a physical reaction to my anxiety. And that's when I first started seeing a therapist. And then I've just kept going to therapy ever since, and it's gotten better, but you still keep working on it. It's really just depending on what is causing it, but for more minor things, it's just like one instance is if someone chases me, I start hyperventilating a lot. But other times it can just feel like my head is going a million directions, a million miles per hour, and then other times when I have like panic attacks, it can feel like you're dying. But you just gotta find different tools to help you with those, to calm yourself down and stuff like that. OCD really only affects me. It kind of goes hand in hand with my anxiety. So if I'm really anxious, I might like have to like organize my desk or make my bed or clean my bedroom or organize the photos on my phone or something like that. My PTSD is very off and on. Some days I can be perfectly fine, or I can be perfectly fine all day, and then when night comes I can just like feel like I can't breathe, like I'm shaking, or I also have flashbacks and nightmares from it, and those are really scary, but I just work through them. My family members have been really great with helping, supporting me, like my aunt, and then also my best friends and twin sister have been really great at supporting me and us all supporting each other. And then also just other friends of mine and my therapists and teachers have helped a lot. Certain teachers have been so amazing, and therapists have just helped me through so much. Do it. It's the best decision I ever made. It's the best decision I continue to make by continuing to go to therapy, continuing to go weekly, and keep working on myself. It's the best thing, and I know there's a stigma around it, but it is so amazing for everybody. It just really helps you through so much that you don't even realize when you go through. Be there for them, and don't push them to talk about it. They'll come to you when they're ready. Just be there for them for when they are ready for it, and don't push them to do more than what they want to do, because that'll just backfire. I'm going to therapy. I play sports as an outlet. I can't right now, obviously, because I just had surgery, but I also write poetry and sing and just stay connected to people. If you constantly keep connected to people, you're not going to be alone, you're not going to feel so alone, and you'll have people watching for if you're starting to fall away a little. I want to move out to New York and go to college out there and and be in the FBI with the Child Protective Services, somewhere in there. I just really want to help kids, or I want to be a teacher, but I definitely want to move out to New York and keep writing and keep singing and keep playing sports, and yeah. It can feel like you're really alone. It can feel like nobody understands you, nobody gets you, nobody knows how you're feeling. You feel like you're broken, which you're not, but it can feel that way. But you really just need to keep reaching out and asking for people's help and trying your best to explain how you're feeling, because even if somebody doesn't know exactly how you're feeling, you're not alone, because there's other people other than just the people around you You're never alone. Well, I've been going to therapy since I was in 5th grade because the doctors had suggested it and my mom took their suggestion to put me in therapy. But even with going to therapy, there's certain nights where I just it's really hard on me and I know I need to seek more help than going to therapy. So I'll call my friends, or I will call a hotline or a crisis line, which those are amazing too, just to get that little extra support for me. And if you're not seeing a therapist is a great support to have. When you're having some sort of attack, or your mental illness is really affecting you, the biggest thing is if you can find something to do or something to listen to. I love music. Whenever I'm having a really bad PTSD attack, I will listen to rap music and then I'll go to slower music so that it feels like my heart is slowing down with the music. But just finding something that will help you calm yourself down. And it's really kind of trial and error, but if you just keep working at it and keep just trying to figure out what you like, what helps you, what doesn't help you. Like me personally, if my twin sister comes in while I'm having a PTSD attack or an anxiety attack, it just makes it worse. But if my friend Annabelle were to come in or something, I would feel a lot better, and that's just because of who I am personally. But you just have to figure out what can help you through the moment for yourself, and then you need to reach out to get those things so you have them in case an attack or something does happen. The stigma behind going to therapy, I do not like whatsoever, because I feel like therapy is such an amazing thing because it helps you with things you didn't even know you needed help with. Like, I didn't know I had PTSD until I went to therapy and she told me, and then we started working on it, and that helped me so much. But I didn't even realize I had it until someone told me I did, and then we can start working on it to make me feel better. And it is just, I don't believe in the stigma, but I know it's real, but I just don't like it because therapy is such a great option for everybody. And even if if people say, I don't like to talk about my emotions, there's other ways to do therapy where there's not just one type of therapy, there's so many more. And it's not always just talking, you can do other things to help express yourself. I do EMDR, which I hold 2 buzzers in my hands, and my brain does its thing. And then my therapist says, okay, do you want to talk about this? Do you want to do another set? We don't have to talk about it. Or you can draw to show that. I did that when I was a little kid. You can do it ways you don't even realize that you're talking about it, but you talk about other things that contribute to it. I'm 14, and a lot of my friends have mental illnesses, and that's not because I make friends with people that have mental illnesses. That's because a lot of kids just have mental illnesses this day and age. And a lot of parents deny that their kids have mental illnesses, and that I feel like is so terrible, because if your kid has mental illness, they might not be able to recognize it, and they might need someone's help to get help. And it's just a growing number, and I think it's contributed to schooling has gotten more competitive. It's internet, being constantly on your phone, which the phone is a great thing because it's a constant thing where you can go to reach help on, but it also can be a bad thing with the comments and Snapchats and all that stuff coming at you. It can make it feel really overwhelming, but it also can be amazing for reaching out for help, like calling crisis lines that are 24/7 and all that stuff, where it can make you feel really alone or really not alone, and you just really need to try and work on that balance. When I'm like really in a dark moment, I just try to think of, okay, if I wasn't in this exact moment, what would I do? Or if my friend called me and said, this is going on, what would I tell them to do? And so that's what really pushes me to get help or to reach out to someone, or and the more you practice it, the more times you go through it. I hope you don't go through it a ton of times, but as you learn and experience things, it's easier to remember exactly what to do in those moments. And you just really have to find what works best for you. Therapy has helped me with so many different tools, and it's not just breathing techniques. It's envisioning yourself in different places, breathing techniques, just techniques or tools that are altered to me and what works best for my personality, because breathing might work for me but not for somebody else, and your therapist can really help you find tools that will help you, not the general people. So if one thing doesn't work for you and you can find a different tool that helps you, that's great. Before I started going to a therapist, I would hyperventilate a lot. I would break out in hives. I would feel like I couldn't slow my mind down, that it was constantly moving, constantly going. It just felt like, I couldn't tell anybody about it, because then they thought I would be weird or something. But that is completely wrong. And I thought I was alone, and that is also completely wrong. You are never alone. You are never weird for feeling a feeling. It's just my body reacted physically, other people's do other ways. But after I started going to therapy, I got a lot better. I wasn't sick all the time. I was going to school. Before I started going to therapy, I missed about 50 days of school one year. I'm surprised I passed 5th grade, because I was constantly sick and constantly getting tested for different things because they couldn't figure out what it was. And it was just simply that, or not simply, but it was that I had anxiety, and they just couldn't tell it because I couldn't express it as a child. But now I've gotten a lot better at that. Advice is, my biggest thing is you gotta work on yourself. If somebody is holding you back from doing that, they're not worth your time. If somebody isn't allowing you to continue your self-growth, then they are holding you down, and you need to let go of them. But if there's people that are helping you through it and doing it all, they are your true friends. It's not, if your friends are saying that you have to do something to be a certain way, they aren't your friends. It's just people that are not good for you, and being those people that are accepting of you and that are wanting you to get better and that are wanting you to be healthy and be happy. Those are the people that you need to surround yourself with and find an outlet, whether that be sports, writing, reading, a TV show, music, whatever outlet you do that calms you down, that brings you happiness, that brings you joy. That's what you need to focus on, and that's what you need to channel your energy to, instead of these things that bring you down more. Like, if there's something that just makes you feel terrible, focus your energy on what makes you feel good, not what makes you feel bad. I feel like the first step to getting help is having to accept it, that you're not perfect, or that you might have a problem and that you need extra help with. And that's totally normal. Nobody's perfect. But as soon as you can admit to yourself that you're not perfect and that you need to get help, it's easier to ask for that help. And I know asking for the help isn't always the easiest either. I am one of those people that do everything myself, and so asking for help is really hard for me, but it is one of the best things I've ever done. Ask help to whoever you feel comfortable asking for, or asking to, whether that be a teacher, a coach, a family member. If you just call a crisis line, they can help you really well too. Whoever you feel comfortable asking for help to, ask them. And if they can't help you, go to somebody else and keep doing it until you get the help you need. It's definitely hard hearing a ton of adults say, we know what your life's like, we know what it's like to be a teenager these days, or hearing adults say, it's you just have to ask for help. And I know it's not that easy just to ask for help. There's a lot more that goes into it in your brain than just picking up the phone and calling and asking for help. It's a lot harder than that. And when adults say, oh, your life is easier, it's not. It's harder. It's just harder in different ways. It's different challenges we face compared to them. And we'll face them together. It's really hard to understand how good life can be when you're constantly struggling. You just feel like that's how life is. But once you get help and start getting better, you'll realize how much better your life can be and how much happier and how much more optimistic. And I'm not saying after you get help nothing bad is ever going to happen. I'm simply saying that once you get help, you can start finding ways to deal with that bad stuff instead of just letting them pull on you and take everything from you. Thank you for listening to me. Keep working on your growth. You all are loved so much. Goodbye.
When we think about what is anxiety, first of all, just let me start by saying that anxiety is normal and some amount of anxiety happens to everyone. And the neat thing about anxiety is it's actually a built-in survival skill that our bodies have, because anxiety is acting as this alarm and it signals to us that there's a perceived threat. So when this alarm goes off, our bodies know that we need to react because there's that potential danger. So if you were to go hiking in the woods and you saw a bear, your alarm might go off and tell you to freeze. If you have a test tomorrow or a big presentation at work, your anxiety alarm would go off again. And that feeling of stress and worry would come and actually help you because it might push you to do something like study or prepare for your presentation. Anxiety starts to become a problem when it starts overwhelming a person and affecting their day-to-day functioning. So if we think of anxiety as that alarm that lets us know when we're in danger, people with anxiety problems have their alarm going off when there's no real threat. So it actually starts to become a false alarm. So here's an example of that. If you were walking down the hallway and you said hi to someone and they didn't say hi back, someone with anxiety might start to think, gosh, this person must hate me. What did I do wrong? When there's really no threat. A key sign to it becoming a problem then is that person's fear anxiety is bigger than the perceived situation or threat. You might also start to see a person starting to flee from situations that are anxiety provoking. Working in a school, I see this with kids if they have to give a presentation and they start missing school because they're afraid of public speaking, avoiding social situations. You might see this if someone doesn't want to attend a wedding or a party because they're afraid that they might embarrass themselves. Another key sign is just to look for, is that anxiety becoming excessive and persistent? So it's not going away and it's happening to you most days. When we think about trauma is your body's response to an event or multiple events that are overwhelming your body's ability to cope. And the interesting thing about trauma is the definition really varies from person to person. So what one person finds traumatic, another might not. Two people could go through the exact same event and only one could come out of it developing trauma symptoms. And we think about what are these events? Sometimes they're singular, So this might be like witnessing or hearing about emotional, sexual, or physical abuse. It could be experiencing a rape, a natural disaster, a car accident, war. Trauma can also be ongoing. So this would be bullying, homelessness, neglect, living in poverty, work stress. I think an interesting form of trauma too that we don't always recognize is institutional racism. So this could be harmful practices within our systems or organization that are negative toward a particular race. Trauma can also be secondary. We see this a lot with those in the caring professions. So someone who's a counselor hearing about the trauma of another, they can take on that themselves too. When we think of anxiety as real or perceived, when it comes to someone with trauma, their anxiety is based off of a real experience. An example of this would be someone being afraid of dogs because they experienced a dog attack as a child. Whereas like generalized anxiety might just be someone being afraid of like a snake, let's say, without having had a traumatic experience with this animal. Anxiety related to trauma would be known as PTSD, so that's post-traumatic stress disorder. And with traumatic stress, you might start to see the person avoid situations, places, or things that remind them of their trauma. So if someone was in a traumatic car accident, they might have a fear of driving or of being in vehicles. Some other types of anxiety don't stem from trauma. These would be those generalized anxiety disorders, so a fear or worry about anything and everything like work, school, relationships, safety, how you look. There's also OCD, so that's recurrent thoughts, obsessions, repetitive behaviors like hand washing, counting, and cleaning. There's those panic disorders, so unexpected and repeated episodes of intense fear. And we also see anxiety taking the form of social anxiety. So that's just anxiety in everyday social situations like speaking, eating, or drinking in front of others. So there's really a lot of different types of anxiety. And I think the key point to remember is that when it comes to trauma, that anxiety is stemming from an actual event that happened to the person. When we start to think about what happens physically in our bodies with untreated anxiety, we'll start to see that many people with anxiety also face difficulties like sleeping, they experience headaches, stomach aches. And really, we need to remember that with anxiety, our body is increasing the amount of stress hormones. So that's cortisol and adrenaline. And an increased amount of those in our body can contribute to like high blood pressure, heart disease. It can weaken our immune system, cause weight gain. We also see sometimes people with anxiety experience panic attacks. This can cause nausea, headaches, difficulties breathing. Panic attacks also increase the risk of heart attacks because we have that increased blood pressure and pulse. So really there's quite a lot of physical symptoms of anxiety, and sometimes those are the first ones we notice, or the person will start to experience difficulty sleeping or a stomach ache or headache and not necessarily know what it's coming from. But generally that could be coming from those underlying anxieties and fears. When someone is experiencing anxiety and it's related to trauma, there's a lot of different ways to help. One of the treatments is called EMDR. This is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. EMDR really helps the brain reprocess and refile trauma memories. So the interesting thing about trauma is that during it, our brain is processing and storing memories incorrectly. And this incorrect storage can lead to those past memories feeling very present. It could be something related or unrelated in our everyday life and in the present moment that can lead a person to reacting as they did during the time of the trauma. So it's like the brain is feeling like that past disturbing event is happening right now. And EMDR therapy really works to correct that misstorage, and it helps those painful memories associated with trauma lose their impact. It also helps the person kind of become desensitized to them. So the way this happens is during EMDR therapy, the person will address their trauma memory or that target memory while also focusing on something in the present. This could be like a therapist guiding the person through eye movements, taps, or tones. And the reason for this is those bilateral movements, like the rapid eye movements like we have during our REM sleep, that's when the brain really processes trauma. So EMDR is helping to resolve those fight, flight, or freeze responses that are associated with trauma, and also helping us reprocessing unhealthy beliefs. Another trauma treatment for those experiencing trauma and anxiety could be trauma-focused CBT. So TFCBT is designed for children who have been impacted by trauma. The sessions are divided equally among a child and their parent or caregiver. And the first step of TFCBT is providing education about trauma and trauma reminders. So teaching a child and their caregiver, what is trauma? What's happening in your brain when you're experiencing trauma? What is something that might cue that trauma again for you? TFCBT also focuses on teaching relaxation skills and cognitive coping. So cognitive coping is understanding the connection between our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. During TFCBT, the child also has a chance to process their trauma narrative and to create this and share this with their caregiver. When we think about how long these treatments last, TFCBT really varies from person to person. Generally, they're 12 to 25 sessions at 60 to 90 minutes each. It could be something that's 3 months to a year or longer, especially with children as they're continuing to grow and develop and maybe experiencing new traumas or new challenges. With EMDR, it also varies depending on the trauma. Like, was it a single event? Was there multiple events? The neat thing about EMDR, though, is people can see symptom relief within the very first session, and typically those are 60 to 90 minutes long. When we are noticing people that we think are experiencing anxiety and trying to figure out, should I help this person? Should I connect them? Do they need help? A key thing to look for is anxiety interfering with their day-to-day functioning? So working in a school setting, I see this when students start to avoid going to school, for example, on days when they have to give a presentation or in days they have to engage in group work. Or you might see this as an adult if you're starting to not show up to work when you have, meetings with your boss that you perceive to be stressful. If the person also starts experiencing some of those physical symptoms of anxiety, so not sleeping, nausea, headaches, those can be really good signs that it's time to seek out some help. We might also start to notice the person isolating themselves, having a lower frustration tolerance or tearfulness or low self-esteem. With kids, I start to see the academics kind of sliding and maybe failing some classes. I think one really good guideline to look for is if you start to notice anxiety limiting what a person would like to do with their life. So if someone would like more friends, but they're too anxious or scared to talk to anyone or attend any events to meet people, if it prevents someone from living the life they'd like to live, then it's a really good sign that they might need some extra help. When you're wanting to support someone with anxiety or trauma, I think before anything else, listen, ask the person how they're feeling, ask them what you can do to help, and say that you're there for them no matter what. And it's even okay to say that you don't know how to help, but you'll do what you can to help or to find someone that can help them. This could be someone who's specialized in treating trauma and anxiety. So it might be helping to offer them find a therapist, a counselor, or another trained professional to talk with. There's so many options out there now, especially now with COVID-19. One benefit of this pandemic is there's really been a rise in telemedicine services. I know our agency is offering telemedicine, and it's a really nice, easy way to connect people with providers. And the really nice thing about it where I am in the Crookston, Minnesota area is it helps because a lot of people face transportation barriers when seeking out help, and getting to the clinic isn't always possible. So telemedicine helps eliminate that. I would like to say too, if you're an educator, I think it's important to see what you can do to help make the anxiety experience easier for the person. So maybe that's allowing students to have flexible deadlines on assignments that are causing them anxiety. Maybe it's checking in with them more to make sure assignments are written down correctly. When it comes to public speaking, what I like to do is take small steps. It's kind of like climbing a fear ladder is what we call it. So the person might start off with giving the presentation in front of just the teacher, then moving up to giving it in front of the teacher and a couple peers. So we kind of work with the person on their strengths and build with them on their experiences of anxiety, and seeing that if they face things in smaller steps, they'll continue to improve. I really think this is beneficial, especially in a school setting. I think above all else, it's important to listen and hold space with the person. Many times we tend to worry or tiptoe around what we're going to say to someone, how to respond, when it's really more about making a person feel heard rather than what we say, and trying to relate to the person by sharing our own experiences. Especially with trauma, we have to remember that everyone's experience is unique to them. So saying something like, I know what you're going through. I had a panic attack last week because my favorite TV show was canceled. This really minimizes what a person's going through, and it comes off insensitive to the intensity of anxiety and trauma. Some other things to avoid saying would be like, there's no reason to worry, that's not a rational fear, or that happened a long time ago, why are you still worried about it, why are you still thinking about it? We definitely want to avoid questioning the details. So are you sure that that happened like that? Or blaming the person. So saying things like, why didn't you seek out help sooner? Why didn't you tell someone sooner about this? Those are all things we want to avoid. For those of you suffering with anxiety and trauma, I really want to say that you're not alone and this isn't your fault. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone. Healing from trauma is possible. There's so many treatments available now for anxiety and trauma. These conditions do not have to take over your life. And there's no shame in seeking support. It's one of the most courageous things you can do because you are being vulnerable. You're sharing your story and you're taking steps to better your life.